Hi, my name is Mr. Woodward, and this is another how-to video from the ECI ESL garage, saving you money in 24 different languages. Now, this is about nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts hold a car together, and the difference between a nut and a bolt is that the bolt has threads on the outside and the nut has threads on the inside, okay? And in order to tighten it up, you always go righty-tighty. You turn it right-handed. And if you're loosening it, you do lefty-loosey. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, okay? Now, these bolts this is a bolt, has a head, stem, and threads, and they come in the sizes of the head, metric or imperial. But we're not talking about this today. We're talking about TNB, turning nuts and bolts. Okay, so we know what a bolt is and a nut. And they say there is approximately 40,000 or more bolts and nuts that hold a car together. Okay, now the first wrench that we're going to do, and why do we use tools? Because it makes our job easier, keeps our hands clean, and we can get more mechanical advantage to when we're tightening and loosening nuts and bolts. Now the first thing I'm going to talk about is a ratchet. Now this is a 1/4 inch drive ratchet because this is a 1/4 inch, and I can turn it one way to go left or the other way to right, which to be tightened. Now right here is a socket. It always attaches to the ratchet. So this is a 1/4 inch drive ratchet with a socket. Now you use this for bolts and nuts that are below about a 1/4 inch or smaller. Then the next one is a deep socket. When you have to go over things, you use a deep socket, okay? And that's a 1/4 inch. Now there's two other drives that are commonly used, a 3/8 and a 3/8 socket for bolts that are bigger than 3/8 of an inch, which is approximately 10 millimeters. And over, you're going to be using something like that until you get to a 1/2 inch. Again, there's a short socket and a deep socket. Now this is a 1/2 inch drive. This is for bolts and nut heads bigger than a 1/2 inch, usually 9/16. And there's another deep socket that it goes on and it pulls off. And if I want to do it righty-tighty and lefty-loosey, okay? And those are the sockets. So sockets are to turn nuts and bolts, okay? There's another way we use this nuts and bolts. This is the most common. It's called a combination wrench. And the reason it is called a combination wrench, it has an open end and a closed end. And as my students have told me, using the closed end is the safest. It's got less chance of slipping off. Okay, so when you're doing that. When you're losing on the open end, you only got two things you can fly out. So it's better to use the closed end. And when you're turning a thing, turning a wrench or a ratchet or anything, it's always to pull toward you in case it slips off. If you're pulling the wrench or pushing the wrench that way, your fingers could slip off and hurt. So it's good just to hit yourself in the chest once in a while, and then you realize it slipped off. Okay, now this is a tool when you're in a hurry. But the minute you have to grunt, you go, get tighter or looser. You want to stop using this tool because it's very precise and it could break, and use what they call a strong arm bar. This is a strong arm bar. It's for what I call a grunt tool. You could put a pipe on this and grunt your way off it. So you can probably undo almost any nut or bolt that's tight with one of these. You can add a pipe on for leverage. Okay, so it's a grunt tool. Now, and I'll just tell as a side note, and for bonus marks for my students, there are two types of sockets. Unfortunately, we only have, this is called a 6-point socket. This is the strongest socket because it has 6 points. There are other sockets that have 12 points, that have a double hex on there. That's good for keep turning, but they break easy. That's why we don't have any around here. So the grunt tool would be a 6-point socket and a strong arm bar. Then you can grunt your thing off and get it. And adding a little heat by a torch is not a bad idea too. Okay? And following along the opening is this baby here. It looks like a grunt bar or a strong arm bar, but it's got a ratchet on the top. And it has numbers on it. And this is a torque wrench. If you have to tighten to a specific hardness, that means 70 foot-pounds like a wheel nut, where you need the pressure to be even, you got to use one of these things. And the way you use it is you turn the dial to the number of foot-pounds, then you lock it, and then when you get to it, it clicks. Some people call this a clicker wrench, but it's more commonly known as a torque wrench. Now, right for the last little bit, we've done ratchets, they're sockets, we've done combination wrenches and sizes. They even get to this small here, okay? That'd be a combination. And that would be equivalent to a 1/4-inch drive socket or something like that. And what to get away when you're using, so if you're around an obstruction and I'm using my ratchet and I have an obstruction and I can't get around with a socket, okay? So say there's something here like Abdullah's hand or something like that, okay? And I want to move it out. I have different, these are called extensions because they extend the socket. They extend the socket past the place that's an obstruction so you can move it out here. So these are called extensions. Okay, and then if something was there, I would be able to get it. So the last point is extensions. And they come in various drives. This one's a 1/2-inch drive because the distance between here is 1/2 inch. And they also come in 3/8 and a 1/4-inch drive. Okay, I couldn't find the 3-inch, the 1/4-inch drive ratchet. So those are the basic tools that we use in the shop to turn nuts and bolts. We usually have a set of ratchets, combination wrenches, a couple strong arm bars so we can run away, and then a finesse tool so we'll know the actual pressure. Okay? So this is, my name's Mr. Woodward. Today is March 11th, and I just showed you the basic tools, at least 6 or 8 of them, that are going to turn nuts and bolts. Thank you for watching, and you'll see this video in 24 different languages.